Hi, and welcome to Love and the Planets for the week of May 29th, 2017. I'm Armand Diaz in New York.
And I'm Margaret Gray in Dublin.
Margaret, this is a week that has a lot of stuff going on. It's hard to get a handle on it. We start off coming away from a Mars-Saturn opposition. The moon is waxing. The week starts, the moon is waxing in Leo. To me, it looks like a pretty good deal. We have the first quarter moon in Virgo. Seems like a time to get going. Sun trine Jupiter. There's a lot of stuff that makes me think, wow, okay, here we go. Breath of fresh air. And then there's some stuff that's a little challenging.
Yes, when I was looking at the transits for the week, Armand, the word that kind of came to mind was messy. It just feels a little bit messy because it's as if we're kind of starting to get into some of the energies, and then they keep shifting and changing and shifting and changing. So I think sometimes that can be a little, just a little jagged. It doesn't quite feel smooth. And the interesting thing in terms of relationships, of course, which is what we're really interested in, is that there's a lot going on for both Mars and Venus. And of course, there was a lot going on for Venus last week, but it continues this week. And of course, the main thing is that Mars changes sign at the end of the week on Sunday. Of course, he moves from Gemini into Cancer, which is really quite a big deal. Although maybe let's go back a bit and start with what's going on in the week first, and then we can talk a little bit about how it's going to impact relationships to shift Mars, which is the planet of desire, from Gemini to Cancer. So what do you think, what do you think's the biggest thing that's really happening towards the beginning of the week, the most important thing?
Well, I think that Mars sextile Uranus is a big deal. A lot of independent, freedom-oriented energy there. This is really kind of everybody wants to do their own thing. The early part of the week when the moon is in Leo, that certainly supports that sense of kind of me doing my thing. And so I feel that that's probably the thing that colors the early part of the week. It's very energetic. It's coming to the first quarter moon. I think, we're all ready to get out there and do, and, it's certainly going to be an active, energetic time. Cooperation in relationships may be at a bit of a minimum, though. It's kind of like, I'm going to do my thing and you go over there and do yours.
That's what I was thinking too. I was thinking really kind of also maybe a little bit of irritability around, impatience around, and I think part of it is what you were saying, this kind of, enthusiasm to do something, to start something new, something fresh, because there's been so many energies that have kind of held us back the past few months. So I think we're all kind of anxious to just get on with things. But I think, yes, patience might be kind of in short supply. So, to kind of be aware of that when we're with significant other and other relationships, family relationships. And on Wednesday, of course, there's the trine between Mercury and Pluto. So that might be maybe a good day to have some communication, but keeping in mind that there's still a little bit of this irritability vibe around. So to be a little cautious with words.
Yeah, you could really get a message across, and it's a trine. These are actually the Mars, Uranus, the Mercury, Pluto. These are easy aspects, so that there's at least the hope that we can, get stuff across with a degree of decorum and not necessarily explode as we go about it. But yeah, it's going to be it's a little challenging to sort of keep things on a pleasant level, especially with Venus approaching Uranus at the end of the week, early on Saturday morning. So we can say Thursday and Friday really colored by that Venus-Uranus aspect. And that is, the tensions that have been simmering, the issues that have been worked on really since the beginning of the year, since Venus entered the shadow of her retrograde. As we said last week, Venus squared Pluto, and that was kind of like one more little push. And then, Venus gets to Uranus, and I feel that could be kind of like, that could be bluey for some relationships. That could be like things go, only so far. On the other hand, it's a great time to try something new, try someone new, to break out of the box, to have some freedom in your relationships, to have some openness, to say, hey, let's do something different. Let's try it a different way.
That's really what I was thinking, that it's a great time to kind of brush the cobwebs away and say, we're going to start afresh. If people are able to put old resentments aside. And I think that's very crucial, because this is an opportunity to say, okay, we're going to wipe the slate clean. We're not going to go over and over and over and over, as couples can sometimes loop around and say, what's done is done. Let's just start with a clean slate. So that's really the perfect day to do it. And I think the planets that have been building up to it could really help, because of course Venus is trine Saturn also on the Thursday. So there's a little bit of time to maybe plan, how do we do this? So although it's a fresh start, there might be some planning involved. And then to say, okay, we're definitely going to start afresh and start something new. On the other hand, as you say, there could be a little bit of, it could be an explosive time. So it's really whether people are ready to let go. Somebody's still trying to hang on to something, it's really not going to work. So you can't really go round that same loop again. That's really not going to work. Now, of course, on Sunday, then we've got Mars shifting from Gemini into Cancer. So it's a whole different energy. And, with Venus, we're talking about our value system, what we, what we find beautiful, how we relate with our partner. With Mars, we're talking about desire. It's much more raw. There's much more of a primal feel to it. And it's interesting when it moves into something like Cancer, or water sign, because Cancer is so much kind of about the family, about familiar, about security. So it's moving from very cerebral sign, where it's very dynamic and very kind of action oriented and likes communication, into this very private space of Cancer. So it's almost like the opportunity to be fairly dynamic in relationship shifts and changes on Sunday. And then we're back to maybe more kind of what feels safe, what feels secure.
Certainly, although we have to remember that while that is true for Sunday and going forward, what we'll be experiencing in the midst of, let's say, that Venus-Uranus aspect and all the bubbliness at the end of the week is Mars at the very end of Gemini, where he's extra likely to, talk things out and start, little verbal sparring and so on. So that's, that makes that all the more crackling, that Venus-Uranus aspect all the more crackling. And I think you're absolutely right. It's the Mercury, Pluto, it's the first quarter moon in Virgo, it's Venus trine Saturn. There's that period there at midweek, that sort of Wednesday, Thursday, that might be the opportunity to sort of slow down, lay the groundwork, and say, okay, let's think about what we want to do here. Because I think once we get to the weekend, it's zip, it's gone. Like the decisions have been made, everything starts, rocking and rolling at top speed. So you got to kind of get it at midweek, if you don't want to wait till the weekend to bring things up.
And of course, there's also the Sun in Gemini square Neptune on Sunday, not forgetting that, which is kind of a different energy. So it does feel like things really do slow down a little bit on the Sunday. So maybe, maybe the weekend, it's kind of like feistier and more fun, kind of the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then by Sunday, maybe it's a day to mellow out.
Certainly. I think it's probably a good choice to mellow out. And I think that also, too, with that Sun coming up to Neptune on the weekend, so Neptune can take a good or not so good idea and exaggerate it, expand it, make it into something, you could get a little paranoid, you could get a little, like fantasies can go both ways. So, I think you have to watch a little bit and see where things are going. As you said at the beginning, it's a very messy week, and I think it gets messier as it goes along.
So we hope you all take care of yourselves and enjoy the week, and we will see you again next week. Take care, Armand. Bye-bye.
Take care, Margaret.